So what is mindfulness? Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is a leader in the field of mindfulness, has defined mindfulness as the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Important to mindfulness is the concept of doing versus being. The busy lives that we lead in our contemporary and technologically driven culture consumes our attention oftentimes, which can produce this multitasking frenzy and chaos that leaves us constantly doing with no space for just being. This type of culture, along with this constantly doing lifestyle, often results in little space to cultivate what is needed for a healthful well-being. So who can do mindfulness? Oftentimes when we think of mindfulness, we think of these pictures. We think of calm, equanimity, the ultimate state of peace, an individual who is seasoned in the practice of awareness with complete clarity. However, mindfulness is also this. Mindfulness is not about reaching an ultimate state of serenity, but rather it's an act of coming back to the present moment with awareness and without judgment. So ultimately, it's arriving back in the present moment. And if there is any takeaway from this presentation today, is noticing that coming back to the present moment is an act of practicing mindfulness in and of itself. So what mindfulness is versus isn't. Mindfulness is about being imperfect. It's about cultivating well-being. It's about engaging in and practicing non-judgment and non-reactivity. It's about sitting with feelings of discomfort and difficulty. And it's about experiencing mind wandering, like I mentioned before, coming back to that present moment when you've left it. It isn't about being perfect or calm. It isn't about always feeling good. And it doesn't have to be religious or spiritual, but it can be if you choose. So, the history of mindfulness, a form of wellness practice that has been growing in popularity and rapidly increasing over the past decade, 2 decades, is the ancient practice of mindfulness that derives from Eastern philosophy and Eastern practices. Mindfulness practices have origins in ancient times, and these practices include, but are not limited to, practices of mindfulness meditation, yoga, tai chi, or any type of centering prayer. In more recent times, the ancient practice of mindfulness has taken prominence in our society and our culture. Mindfulness practices of all forms have now entered the mainstream society. Mindfulness popularity, particularly in more contemporary cultures like the culture we live in here in America, has resulted in a variety of programs, apps, and practices that are accessible to most people. Mindfulness is also now being used globally within hospitals, academic medical centers, and treatment facilities, along with schools. Mindfulness has shown within research to have positive effects across the brain, the mind, and the body. A whole host of research has demonstrated the vast array of benefits that come from practicing mindfulness. However, research is still underway, and there are gaps that exist in this research on the understanding of mindfulness practices and the effects that result from practicing mindfulness. So, mindfulness in the brain. Recent research has shown that mindfulness can affect regions and functions within the brain. Neuroimaging studies have shown activation of brain areas that involve the regulation of one's emotions. So that research has shown that mindfulness leads to the ability to better engage and manage and regulate your emotional state, so that experience you have within yourself of feeling emotionally charged, as well as to recognize the emotional states of another person. So that capacity to self-regulate or to manage your internal experience within your environment allows for a greater sense of well-being, and it also contributes to the relationships that you cultivate with other people. Mindfulness can also help with what are called executive functions. So those are the functions that help us gain understanding of planning and organizing, problem solving. For instance, helping us to plan a gathering with our family, or to attend to a book or a TV series, or organize our day, or problem solve, or hold salient information in our memory for a short time. Also, improvements have been shown in areas of the brain that monitor self-relevant information. So that's information yourself and how you see and perceive yourself, possibly with more clarity. Other research has shown improvement in adaptive behavior, or the ability to respond to and manage the stress that's within your environment. This is often known as resilience. This could be a sign, this type of research could be a sign for what's called neural resilience, or the ability for neuroplasticity. That's a widely used term for describing our brain's ability to rewire itself by forming new neural connections throughout the lifespan, so whether you're a child or you're an older adult. What does research say about the mind? So numerous studies have shown that mindfulness helps improve our psychological health. One widely studied area is the improvement in insight and mindset, wherein those that are practicing mindfulness improve the health of their mind. These individuals experience a more positive mindset and increased flexibility and concentration. Also, those practicing mindfulness develop a deeper understanding of how their minds work, particularly the understanding of thoughts, emotions, and the beliefs that they have, those beliefs and those thoughts and emotions that actually shape their experience in the external world. Mindfulness also improves our psychological well-being through increased awareness. On average, we pay attention for roughly about 47% of the time, so that's less than half the time. So there's obviously room for improvement with our attention and our awareness. For instance, paying attention to the present moment when you read the newspaper in the morning or while you're having your coffee may actually improve how you feel about yourself, and then in turn improve your psychological well-being. Those who practice mindfulness also show a stronger working memory, the short-term memory that registers in the moment, those in the moment thoughts that we're processing. Also, these individuals that are practicing mindfulness have a less reactive amygdala. That's the part of the brain that is responsible for fear response. It's our fear center, meaning that they're more easily to stay and remain calm, which means they have more clarity when they're encoding or retrieving or recalling any type of memory. Also, studies on individuals practicing mindfulness, it shows that they experience an increase in positive emotions. They are able to experience more positive affective, so those emotional experiences, which results in elevations in mood or a lifted mood. All of these factors influence our ability to adapt and demonstrate resilience and improve our mental health, and also help to foster the insight that I was talking about earlier that helps us to loosen really rigid beliefs we might have and to form more flexible and adaptive sense of how we perceive and see ourselves. Also, it improves our sense of well-being and ultimately improving our overall global health. Research on mindfulness has shown that there is an important link between the mind, which I was just discussing, and the rest of our body. Studies on individuals practicing mindfulness experience improvements in physical health. Studies have shown improvements in immune functioning, ultimately allowing the individual to recover from injury more quickly. Also, research has shown the cultivation of mindful awareness leads to an increase in the enzyme that maintains the integrity of our chromosomes. That enzyme actually supports our cellular life and increases the health of those cells within our body. So inflammation. Other research has shown associations between mindfulness practice and decreases in distress. So symptoms of distress may be associated with even psychological distress, with some well-known mental health disorders that many of us are aware of or know about. And also this body of research has shown a decrease in stress reactivity, or how we respond to stressful situations. A healthy balance of stress activation in the body allows for that healthful cellular development and longevity, instead of excessive wear and tear on the body that could be debilitating to the body and cause inflammation and affect all these different systems within our bodies. Also, research has shown a decrease in exhaustion and burnout. And importantly, research on health shows less susceptibility to chronic diseases and conditions. So given that that practice of mindfulness is associated with improved cellular life in our bodies, we can see that it could also improve our vitality and also be associated with maybe a greater life expectancy. So with all this vast array of benefits that I was discussing on the previous slides, we can also see that mindfulness uncovers the capacity for the ultimate of health, which are those relationships that we forge with others, which we often call interpersonal relationships. One important note is that research has shown that loneliness is one of the greatest threats to our mental health and is particularly prevalent in older adults. Research has shown that individuals who are more socially connected to family, friends, and their community are happier, they are healthier, they're physically and mentally, they are living longer, they're having fewer mental health problems than those who are less well connected. Research on mindfulness has also showed that those who practice mindfulness enhance their connection with others. They experience an increase in empathy and compassion, which in turn relates to possibly an increase in their satisfaction with the relationships that they have in their circle. Also, these individuals show an increased ability to approach rather than withdraw from challenging situations or which are particularly important to well-being, demonstrate that mindfulness increases activation in the reward centers of our brain, which is shown when we are giving more so than receive yourself by giving, which aligns with a lot of the ancient, historical, and contemporary uses of practice. Overall, these practices of empathizing, showing compassion, and expressing gratitude and appreciation are associated with nurturing that interpersonal connection I was talking about with others. And mental, physical, own individual world, and then also your relationships and that greater community. So let's talk a little bit about the practices of mindfulness that maybe you've heard about or that are pretty common in, I would say, our society, that are more mainstream. The most widely used practices of mindfulness encompass an attentional component and then an acceptance component. The attentional component includes the ability to intentionally regulate your attention, which is honed by this deliberate observation of your thoughts, your feelings, and any physical sensations, and any other stimuli in your environment that arises in the present moment. The acceptance component involves maintaining an attitude of openness and receptivity to the experience that is arising, rather than judging, ignoring, or minimizing that experience. So I'm sure many of you have heard of this term, automatic pilot. Mindfulness is actually considered the opposite of being on automatic pilot or being mindless. It provides space for us to become alive. It provides space for us to attend to the details of our ordinary experience as if they were maybe more extraordinary, or maybe there was more to notice about that experience, or to feel a sense of fulfillment. Mindfulness practice involves the intentional, focused awareness of whatever arises as it is. Again, it's not about being perfect or about it being positive. It's just what is arising in that present moment. And then the study of mindfulness explores both inherent traits and intentionally created states. Those could be the positive regard that you have for yourself and for others. That lasts over time. So the intention is that it's not confined or constricted to one's experience in the moment, but rather it becomes a way that you show up in your life. It becomes a lifestyle. So let's talk a little bit about some of the practices. So practicing formal and informal mindfulness as often as you would like helps you to learn skills that you need for overall health and well-being. And learning these maybe when the stakes are low might help you when the stakes are high. So during difficult times of change or pain or reactivity or stress or COVID-19, whatever it is, you can help draw on those tools and those skills and practices to respond in a way that aligns with your values and the way that you would like to show up in the world. And I think I'll kind of go through these practices, but the intention for this slide is to think about how could you incorporate this in your life, and it's informal. It's not taking time away from what you need to do. You don't need to schedule it into your day. It's more just noticing how you can incorporate it in the things that you do every day that maybe you're on automatic pilot and you're doing them mindlessly. So how can we be more engaged in the day-to-day things that we need to do? So an example is mindful eating. This meditation involves focusing mindfully on food as you fully experience the smell, the texture, the taste, and other sensations of the food as you eat it very slowly, or you just notice it in a different way than before. Mindful walking may include the experience of your feet making contact with the earth. With each step you take and you notice the sensations in your body. For those who maybe don't use their feet for mobility, this could be a moving meditation where you focus on what you're experiencing and noticing in the chair, or any other adaptive device that you maybe are using. Also, you can notice nature. I think nature is probably one of my favorite ones. You can make this a form of meditation by listening to the sounds of the birds, the frogs, the leaves, whatever it is, the rustling that's happening in the trees as you walk by. And even if you live, you can listen to the sounds of the cars or the voices of people as they walk by. Mindful showering may be practiced by feeling the sensations of the warmth or the cold of the water, listening to the sound of the spray of the water around you, noticing your thoughts and feelings during that entire experience of something that we do daily, and we often do mindlessly as well. Mindful cleaning may be practiced, for instance, when washing dishes. Not all of us enjoy washing dishes. Noticing the water and feeling the sensations of the warmth, the bubbles on your hand, just slowing your movements down, and you pause for a moment and pay attention to each thing that you're washing. You could do this while you're doing laundry as well. Mindful breathing. This one is, I would say, one of the more well-known practices that can be incorporated at any moment. Just bringing awareness to your breath, gently guiding your focus solely to your breath as you naturally breathe in and out, allowing your breath and your awareness to expand. So just that inhale and that exhale, following it all the way through your diaphragm. To incorporate mindful care and compassion, you might find it helpful to bring your attention to receiving and releasing. So for example, breathing in and receiving hope, peace and joy, and then breathing out, releasing anger, pain, or suffering, whatever it may be. And you could actually label that as you engage in that act of breathing. Mindful connection. This one's kind of cool too. You could think about how you could cultivate this across all types of relationships. For instance, the next time you catch sight of your partner or a close friend, you might notice something new about them. Maybe you pay attention to the way they move, their facial expressions. You pay attention to their aroma. Is it what you expected? And I think you try not to judge. You just are accepting them for who they are. And it's not about judging. It's about just observing what's happening in the moment. Maybe you'll find something new about the person, or they become newly alive to you. There's a very interesting way to engage in that mindful connection that can really create a stronger connection between that interpersonal relationship. And then mindful metta, which is my personal favorite, and I'll show you on the next slide. It's a collection of phrases that you can come back to at any point, and maybe maybe each of them is not always relevant, but maybe there's times when some of them could be really helpful to implement. So this is the mindful metta. This is the mindful metta practice that I'll do a lot, and I don't necessarily look at these. I just know a lot of them in my head. So an example may be, may I find peace in this uncertain world. That may be really relevant right now. May I be happy and free. May I live a life of goodwill. May I be free from toxic energy. May I be my best self. And then I think that last one too is really interesting. May I love myself just as I am, whole, complete, perfect as is. So those ones are just different ones. You can also create your own. It kind of depends on the situation. Maybe you're going into a doctor's appointment and you want to say, may I be a source of strength for myself, things like that. It could really be anything. There's no right or wrong. And then more formal practices. I noticed a few of these slides are a bit messed up, but that's okay. You guys will stick with me. So more formal practices include the act of making time and creating space. So this would be a little bit different than the informal ones, but they all have a similar agenda, and that's just to kind of be in the moment, be present, be aware without judgment, and then returning to it when you go away from that moment. And these can also be integrated in your daily life. So a sitting meditation, it could be sitting, standing, or lying down and just noticing that you're having your heart open and strong but relaxed. And you could do this for several minutes. You could do it for an hour. It really depends. But the experience, again, is just about being and experiencing that stillness. Loving kindness, which this is a practice I probably gravitate toward most. And it also kind of aligns with that informal metta practice that I showed you on the previous slide. Loving kindness meditation can be practiced by welcoming and wishing kindness, love, goodwill, friendliness to others, and also to yourself. And then body scans. This is particularly a good one for individuals who experience any type of chronic pain or any type of disease that feels debilitating. This could be a particularly positive experience for them, but also could bring into mind and into their experience those areas that are really salient with pain. So it's important to take caution with it as well. But with the body scan, slowly and intentionally scanning through your entire body with your mind and focusing from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. And then sometimes coming back to like your heart space, coming back to the center. And then the focus is just being relaxed and aware and kind of reclaiming your connection instead of resisting with your body and the sensations that arise. A sensation could be something as simple as an itch that you really want to itch and just noticing what happens to it. Or maybe you feel something with your joints. It could be really anything. If you are experiencing pain, for example, the practice is to notice that sensation and try not to block it, but just noticing it rather than judging it. So being comfortable with the uncomfortable is kind of that idea. And that leads into practices of sitting with discomfort, pleasant feelings. So noticing them with interest and openness and curiosity. This could be physical or emotional sensations that are around you. This is often one of the most difficult practices for people because no one really wants to sit with uncomfortable feelings. Like, why would you want to do that? And I think society kind of teaches us to just avoid them or suppress them, or they're not okay to express. And so the idea here is just noticing what your experience is. Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Is it neutral? And gently just nodding or acknowledging it and not having to change it. So if there is an uncomfortable feeling, just allowing it to manifest, allowing it to happen, not judging it. Maybe we also don't know why it's happening. And then yoga, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, but ideally it's the integration of the mind, the body, and the spirit through breathing, through different poses and flows and movement. And it also incorporates a mindful component most times. It has a strong focus on letting go of resistance that you might have within your body and accepting where like your mind and your heart is at. And it also the practice of yoga tries to instill that acceptance and not about being perfect, and kind of honoring your body with each movement. Okay, so let's see how we feel about mindfulness being debunked. The whole point of this presentation should be captured on this slide. So forget about all the science. We know that it has some pretty legit things that come with it, but the main point of mindfulness, it is, again, it's not about being perfect or calm or reaching an ultimate state of serenity, but rather it's just an act of arriving at the present moment and coming back to the present moment without judgment, again with awareness. And when attention wanders and we fail to be present or to remain in the present, we engage in yet another act of mindfulness, and we arrive in the present moment again and again. So sometimes the main takeaway would be that oftentimes we judge ourselves and we say, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing mindfulness right, I'm not sitting right, I don't understand it. My friend gets it, I don't get it. My partner gets it, I don't get it. But the idea actually is there's nothing to get. It's really about just coming back to that moment. We have so many thoughts that race in our head 24/7, and that's okay. It's not about judging those, it's just coming back to the present. So say you sit down for 10 seconds and you already feel like you failed. Oh no, I suck at this. I'm not doing well. Noticing that thought and then coming back to that moment once your mind wandered, that's mindfulness. That means you are practicing it. And even people who practice it who are seasoned practitioners and have been practicing for decades, they still have to approach it with what we might call a beginner's mind, where they just come back to the present moment. They're coming back constantly. They may have no better skill than a person that starts today. Again, because each experience is a new one, and maybe it's an experience that you haven't had before in the past. So I think ultimately just remembering that mindfulness is not a technique or about learning to like manage your stress. It's more of a way of living that's within every one of us. And actually, like I said, we all have the capacity to practice mindfulness in our daily lives. It doesn't take any special talent or skill. So now, if you would like, I would like to engage you in a formal practice. And so I will just speak throughout it. It's a short teaching on mindfulness breathing, and you can decide how you want to approach it. But It should be about I would say 3 or so minutes, 3 or 4 minutes maybe. Does everyone feel like they would be interested in that? Okay. Okay, so let's return to the gong. So when we onset this meditation, I will hit the gong once, and then I will start talking, since it will be guided and you guys will hear my voice, but you'll really be focusing on your own experience. And then as it ends, I'll also hit it so that you'll know, even though I'll share that it's the end of the meditation, you'll also know that it's ending by the gong. All right? So as your body settles and your eyes close, or you choose to have your eyes remain open, and if you do that, you can identify an area of focus on the ground or around you that is without distraction, and bring to your awareness your breathing. Notice the breath coming in and the breath going out. Follow the breath with your awareness. Follow the breath all the way in, and follow the breath all the way out. Not trying to change it in any way. Just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, feelings the breath as it passes through your nostrils. Breathing out, feeling the breath as it leaves your nostrils. Keeping your awareness lightly and gently on your breath. Breathing mindfully in the present moment. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. If thoughts come in, as they always do, acknowledge the thoughts without judgment and let them go. Let them drift away like clouds floating across the sky. And bring your awareness back to your breath, back to your breathing, back to the present moment. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Each time your attention moves away from the breath, distracted by a thought about something you have to remember to do, perhaps, or maybe something that is bothering you or worrying you, notice the thought again, acknowledge the thought, and then let it go. And bring your awareness back to your breath, to the present moment. Letting your full awareness be on the breath as it comes in and as it goes out. Noticing the familiar rhythm of the breath. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. When you bring your awareness to the breath in this way, you are connecting the mind and the body in the present moment, in this moment. So bringing your awareness to your breath connects mind, body, and spirit in this present moment. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment, or maybe it's a moment of intensity or difficulty. Continuing to mindfully breathe in this way for as long as you like. Following the breath all the way in, noticing the slight pause at the turning point as the in-breath becomes the out-breath, and following the breath all the way out. Noticing the brief pause at the turning point as the out-breath becomes once again the in-breath, aware of the steady, familiar rhythm of the breath. As we bring this meditation to an end, keeping your eyes closed or concentrating on the area chosen earlier for just a little while longer, take a moment to notice how you are feeling. Your body, your mind, your spirit, your heart center. If you like, you can offer gratitude for this time that you've taken for yourself, for you to be quiet, for you to breathe, and for you to bring yourself back into balance, back to your heart center. So slowly, come back into this space, aware of your body in the seat, opening your eyes or looking around whenever you are ready. How's everyone doing? So I think the only other thing I would share is there are some resources here, and I know maybe Paige can send them to you if you're interested. Other than that, I appreciate everyone listening and also engaging in the practice itself. If there are any questions, I think Paige might also have a few things to say as well. And thank you, Paige and Mackenzie, for offering me this opportunity.